There are thousands of protesters who have gathered on Capitol Hill to protest the war. Our own Kathleen Koch is there with some news of some arrests.
Is on. You can hear the protesters still chanting. There are roughly about 1,000 still here massed on the west front of the U.S. Capitol. And what happened is they started climbing over metal barricades that the Capitol Hill police had erected. And at that point, police began arresting protesters. I just got off the phone with the Sergeant Kimberly Schneider of the U.S. Capitol Police. She gave an estimate of at least 150 protesters who have now been arrested. Our cameraman Doug Shantz got video of that. We're going to be bringing that video back right away. But at some point, pepper spray was even brought out to hold some of the protesters at bay. But still a pretty good-sized crowd gathered here, and occasionally a couple of them are still climbing over the barriers. But now the steady flow of arrests has really slowed to a trickle, looking like it's starting to wind down here now, Suzanne.
And Kathleen, how did the protesters react when the pepper spray came out? Are you saying that police officers actually pepper sprayed some of the protesters?
Apparently so. That's what our cameraman Doug Shantz caught on camera, but he has already headed back to the D.C. Bureau with that tape, so I can't say what the reaction was, but clearly one can imagine that they were none too pleased.
Do we know if there's been any violent outbursts so far? We know that there have been people arrested and clearly perhaps pepper spray even used. Do we know if anything came to blows here?
Well, certainly, Suzanne, there must have been some difficult moments up and down the parade route as they marched from Lafayette Park here to the U.S. Capitol, because there was a counter-protest, roughly just about 1,000 pro-troop supporters who lined Pennsylvania Avenue and were there with their flags and were there to confront the protesters. Our cameras did not capture anything. Our cameras did actually get in a bit of a scuffle with some of the protesters as they were coming down the avenue, just trying to cover the news. But the protesters backed off, let our cameraman, Jay McMichael, do his job, and things proceeded calmly after that.
Sure. Well, Kathleen, thanks so much. Please be safe, and thank you for bringing us the very latest in the middle of all of that. Kathleen Koch. Now, you may remember the Air Florida Flight 90 crash into the icy Potomac River back in 1982. I certainly did. The accident killed 78 people, both people aboard the plane and people driving over the 14th Street Bridge. Well, today, Reagan National Airport held a disaster drill based on this very scenario. CNN's Alina Cho has that story.
Sirens blare at Reagan National Airport in Washington, but this is just a drill. Emergency workers simulated a plane crash with volunteers donning makeup to play injured passengers. FBI agents act out what they would do if this were real.
We are going to assume that a criminal act or a terrorist act has taken place and brought this aircraft to this disastrous position.
Somebody's got to come get us!
You'll see here we'll simulate that an aircraft has crashed in the parking lot.
Washington firefighters and policemen worked with the Red Cross to triage the volunteer victims, a disaster preparedness exercise that local officials plan every 3 years.
Trying to help our first responders have a real practical exercise is critical to being able to handle the situation should it really occur.
We have victims in vehicles, we have victims in the aircraft, we have victims in the water.
One of your dream victims.
She's blind and both her arms are broken.
It is quite dramatic, and so it may catch some people's attention.
Anybody!
But officials say the point of the drill is to keep authorities trained and ready in case of an emergency.
No single agency can do it by themselves. It requires the efforts of a number of different agencies, and today gives us an opportunity to exercise that.
Alina Cho, CNN, reporting.
Well, it's nice and warm here, but it is beginning to feel like fall in some parts of the country. Our own Jackie Jarris following that. Jackie, it's getting cooler now already?
Yeah, already. Not even just fall-like conditions, even feeling like winter for some of you. We'll have the latest on the cold snap and the tropics. That's coming up in just a minute.
I'm too young to vote.
But if I could vote, I'll vote for a candidate who'll fix health care.
I would vote for the candidate who would protect Social Security.
And pensions. I will vote for the candidate who keeps promises.
It seems simple to me, but I'm just a kid. But someday, I'll be grown up.
And I'll vote for the candidate who has the answers.
I'll vote for the candidate who will get it done. Will you?
It's time for health care and financial security for all. Demand action and answers at dividedwefail.org.